disclaimer. So pursuant to MGL 7C 30A section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of such recording. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items or those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. And also, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body, this meeting of the Great Barrington Select Board and Planning Board Housing Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website and on our agenda. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. So if you go to the agenda, you should be able to find ways to connect either through the phone, through Zoom, and that's that. Okay, so now we get to the Select Board, Planning Board, Housing Subcommittee, roll call attendance. John?
I'm here.
Garfield?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
And I am Pedro Pachano, I'm here. So second item on the agenda is to review, discuss, and approve the minutes of the September 20th, 2021 meeting.
I move to approve as amended.
Do I have a second for that?
What's the amendments? I guess I can't approve it or second it unless I hear the amendment.
Did you send amendments out?
Yeah,
Jonathan?
Sure I did. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see them. I'm sorry.
So would you prefer that we wait until the next meeting to approve these minutes, Lee?
Oh no, if he could just flag it what the changes were.
They're typically just grammatical, that sort of thing. Nothing significant.
Okay, that's fine with me.
I still need a second on the motion.
Oh, second.
Okay, Lee seconds. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? None. Oh, Garfield?
No discussion, actually, except I was not present for that meeting. So we can't vote on it.
So you'll abstain? So yes. Jonathan? So roll call vote. Jonathan, aye. Lee?
Aye.
And Pedro, aye, with an abstention from Garfield. So this next item on our agenda is a short discussion of the senior tax deferral. And for that, we have Vivian Orlowski, who's going to give us a little bit of background. And hopefully we can make a recommendation out of this committee to the Finance Committee and to the Select Board. So Vivian, I believe you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me and see me?
We can.
Great. For those who don't know, I'm Vivian Orlowski, and I've lived full-time in Great Barrington for more than 30 years. During this time, I've served on the Master Plan Committee, the Economic Development Committee, and the Agricultural Commission, which I've chaired since 2015. For many years, I coordinated the Southern Berkshire Interfaith Clergy Association and organized the annual celebration of the Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday. I've also been involved as a volunteer in many other community activities, including serving on Construct's Advocacy Committee. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to discuss with you how an active senior tax deferral program could be part of an overall affordable housing strategy for Great Barrington. I think this is very timely in light of the larger challenges we face in preparing for this meeting. I found an article which says came out recently. Massachusetts tops the nation in new index of economic insecurity for elders living alone. And we're number 3rd for elders living with another family member. It's quite a challenge here in Massachusetts, although we have an impression of prosperity, which is wonderful. That does not necessarily carry over into the lives of many people, including many seniors. So also to prepare for tonight, I reviewed the housing section of the Great Barrington award-winning master plan, where Jonathan and I had input as members of the committee. At that time, we didn't know about the senior tax deferral option, but the master plan does value our close-knit community and seeks to enhance the quality of life in our neighborhoods. It also points out how various economic influences are putting pressures on homeowners of all ages and trying to mitigate that with the town policies. And to prepare, I also looked at the minutes posted online for your committee, and I agree with your chair, Pedro Pachano's emphasis that the committee's reach should be further than traditional affordable housing, which is, I guess, defined as meeting 80% of the area median income, and it should cover all income levels and housing opportunities short of second home and luxury markets. So looking at the various policies that you're considering in this committee, I would make the case that the senior tax deferral is one of the few ways to support the housing goals of the master plan and to extend the reach of your committee without requiring any additional expenditures and would not involve raising taxes on others. This was documented, for example, by the town of Sudbury, which has had senior tax deferral for many decades. They've done exhaustive research on it, and they've concluded that they actually wanted to encourage seniors in need to defer their taxes. So they lowered their eligibility age from the state law, which can be varied either up or down. They lowered it to age 60. And they also raised the qualifying income to $92,000 as determined by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue senior circuit breaker. And several years ago, the Sudbury finance director answered affirmatively yes to the following question. Is a municipality allowed to consistently spend more than it collects in revenues? And she said, remember that, quote, remember that spending is controlled by the appropriation process. While a municipality cannot spend more than what is appropriated at town meeting, it may spend more in annual appropriations than what it collects in property tax revenues. The reason for this is that there is a basic assumption, which has proved true over many years, is that because the town has a lien on the property, it will eventually collect the taxes. So in a way, it becomes just another investment for the town. If the money had been paid in taxes, it probably would have wound up in some reserve or free cash account in a bank or in some state fund that serves municipalities. But instead, it's keeping place, so to speak, as an investment in local housing and keeping seniors in their neighborhood. So to summarize, how would such a safety net program benefit Great Barrington? It would be equitable, it would be secure because of the lien, and no one can defer more than 50% of the assessed value of their home. So even if the housing market goes down when the taxes have to be paid, and the town has to exercise its lien, there would be ample funds for it to recoup everything that's owed. And it's also flexible so that residents and families would have the flexibility of applying on a year-to-year basis, unlike the more complex reverse mortgage process, which usually involves a very large sum of money, not just 1 year's tax payment, and a lot of fees and paperwork involved. And it could provide vital support if a healthcare crisis or other family emergency arises. The stability of our neighborhoods would be supported by this, and thus helping to offset in a small way the outside market pressures favoring second homeowners who have more resources and can bid up the prices of homes. It's also family friendly. It would not only help older residents, but also reduce burdens on their family. And it's business friendly. Local businesses often have long time trusted relationships with their customers, and they would then, that business would continue rather than people who come from elsewhere who might seek to make their purchases elsewhere. It's also easy to administer. For example, even though Sudbury has a very active program, their principal assessor, whom I spoke to several times, assured me that the application process was very straightforward and was not a burden on staff time. As I recall, Sudbury, with close to 20,000 residents, has a staff of 3 people in their assessor's office, and in contrast to Great Barrington's staff of 2 people for a population of about 7,000, which is about 1/3, a little bit more than 1/3 of the population of Sudbury. And also, there would be a quick learning curve. While this is innovative for Great Barrington and in the Berkshires as a whole, as the Berkshire Eagle pointed out, in supporting senior tax deferral, no other town in Great Barrington, no other town in the Berkshires is making this program easily accessible and affordable for their seniors. But so while it's a new program, so to speak, it's also can draw on more than 100 towns that have instituted active programs. And of those, 83 have actually voted in changes to the outdated income maximum, which was set by the state more than 30 years ago, which is set at $20,000 annual income. They've enlarged it to, as I've shown on the chart that I provided to you. And they've also reduced the interest rate charged from the 8% that seemed reasonable back, in the 1980s and 1990s when the bill was drafted and passed. But it's in today's economy, that's certainly outdated. As you can see, the towns on the chart that are actively making this program available have reduced their interest rates considerably. So the question now to consider, just very briefly before I end, is do we want to provide a safety net for those who have been paying property taxes for many years, and indeed in some cases for many decades? And can we learn from the successful experience of other towns who have really sought to be of help? And I think this would be a win-win program for our town and enable those who have made the town what it is today to continue to live in Great Barrington. I welcome your questions and comments, and I'm really interested in how this could fit into your overall development of a strategy. Thank you.
Vivian, could you give us a quick overview of how it actually works?
Yeah, I think if you look at if you look at that chart that I sent you at the bottom, I took the example I looked at the websites for all these towns, their assessors' offices, and some of them had more information and others less. In some cases, I spoke to assessors, and others I didn't. I didn't speak to the assessor in Hingham, but I found this very short summary of what they do. So if I could read that, I think that might give you an idea. Quote, many retired homeowners feel house rich and income poor. Property taxes constitute a serious financial burden, which can even force the sale of the home. Hingham offers a tax deferral program, which enables the owners to defer payment of up to 100% on an annual basis of property taxes. Deferred taxes accumulate with simple interest, and in Hingham, it's at 1%, as a lien on the property until the property is sold or the owner has deceased, or in some cases, people can pay it back following years so as not to keep the lien on their house. That's my editorial. And then Hingham continues, you must be 65 years of age as of July 1st, 2020. Your gross receipts must be $60,000 or less. you must own and occupy your home as of July 1st, 2020, and you must have owned property in Massachusetts for 5 years and domiciled in Massachusetts for the past 10 years. Does that give you some of the more granular aspects?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Thanks.
Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Vivian. So I believe that the Finance Committee is looking at this. So I am very interested to see what they come back with, because although I am completely in favor of this philosophically, I do want to make sure that all the boxes are checked in terms of the impact on the town. So I'm very, very much looking forward to the Finance Committee's report to the Select Board about this. But I really appreciate all the hard work that you've put in this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. I can't speak for the Finance Committee, of course. I'm not even on it, but on this issue, and on previous issues, I've been at many meetings, shall we say, but on this issue, I've met with them 3 times. And it's been a learning curve for all of us. And I think their current concern is that basically this would kind of put aside some of what the town has in free cash and other reserves. It would, instead, as I mentioned in my presentation, instead of investing in a local CD or a local bank account, or there's a state fund, I forgot the name of it, but I have it right here. Anyhow, I can look it up later. There's a state fund for municipalities which invests funds with a commercial finance organization on behalf of all the towns. And instead of that, it would be invested in our local community by helping seniors stay in their home, basically use their own money that would otherwise go into these coffers, right? It's not taking out of the operating budget in any case. Any town that offers this always has a buffer so that they're in no way influencing the operating budget and thus, detracting from funds that would go to other active programs. Where it becomes an issue and where the Finance Committee is concerned is about the long-term impact over many years, how this could accumulate and take a larger and larger portion of the town's free cash or cash reserves. Now, at this point, Great Barrington is in an exceptional position because we have one of the largest percent of our total budget and our total levy as free cash. We have over 18%. Only a handful of other towns in the state are at that level of free cash. So my case to the Finance Committee is, yes, you have a valid long-term concern, but this could be kind of like a pilot program once passed by town meeting. Once you'd adjust the interest rates lower and raise it to include middle-income seniors as well as very low-income seniors, it could be a pilot program because the following year, the Select Board has full power under state law then to readjust whatever is passed by town meeting originally. The original town meeting warrant item is needed only to kind of supersede these outdated standards set over 30 years ago by the town law. So it's whatever is decided now and recommended by the Finance Committee, decided by the Select Board and put on the warrant is really a pilot program for 1 year, and everything can be adjusted and fine-tuned after that. Another way it can be fine-tuned is that instead of going down like Sudbury did to 60 years, we could go up from the 65 that the state law says. We could go up to 70 or even 75, which is used by some communities. And thus, it's with that, if people start with deferrals only at that age, and with the mortality rate being in the high 70s and low 80s, most people will not live long enough to be, a long-term deferral for the town. So I hope that helps clarify what the Finance Committee is dealing with now. They've been doing a lot of research. They're extremely conscientious. I'm so glad to see that they're looking at everything so carefully. But I think they need the reassurance from other committees, just like from the Council on Aging, hopefully from your committee, that this is something worthwhile and that it should be tried at least on this pilot program basis. And after that, we could always revert to the state levels, and towns that do offer only for those with 20,000 or less, or who set the interest rate at 8%, have only one or two people, if that, applying every year. Basically, it really limits the ability of most people to use it in this day and age. So I feel that the risk is really minimal, but the Finance Committee is definitely doing their due diligence.
Thank you.
Garfield, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo a little. Wait a second. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to echo some of what Vivian said, and I believe it would be a win-win for the town and the seniors. Myself being a senior may take advantage of it. It has to go through, run its course, if you will, but I'm very much in support of it. I'm very much going to do whatever I can to help get it passed. I think it's important to this town. I won't say much more, but I am hoping to get some support also from my colleagues. Thank you.
So I've got one thing I've been thinking about, and that is, so this deferral program will take property taxes on a yearly basis from a qualifying senior, and those taxes will accumulate over the year. So let's say somebody who buys into the program will have been in the program for 10 years. When that home becomes available, either through a transfer to a family member or for sale, those taxes would then have to be paid back, correct?
Immediately, yes. I think there's a very punitive interest rate after that process if it's not paid back very quickly. I don't remember the exact term, but I think it's within a few months it has to be paid back.
So I guess my concern might not be a super, they might not have a huge impact, but I'm wondering if you've seen that this program has an effect on housing prices. So in other words, once somebody is out of the program, the property comes on the market, and let's say it's sold for $150,000, but it's got $50,000 in arrears and taxes that need to be taken care of. So a home, that's on the market for 150 now is suddenly sort of artificially inflated to 200,000. Is that? Am I thinking this correctly? Is this a possibility? No?
I don't think you are. No, I think that the back taxes are paid from the proceeds of the sale. It doesn't add value to the property.
Okay, so they would be paid from the proceeds of the sale and not in addition to the sale.
Right.
Okay.
Oh yes, and one other thing, Pedro. You don't enter into the program for more than a year. It requires application every year to make sure that you fulfill all qualifications that year. So if this is passed by town meeting and it would go into effect next fiscal year, the following fiscal year, everyone has to start from square one again if they want to continue. I was able to speak to several assessors who were very forthcoming and very glad to help. The principal assessor, I guess he's called the director of assessing in Newton, has also been on the board of assessors there for 5 terms and has immense experience. And they actually have data on payback, and their average payback is slightly less than 6 years. I think it's 5.7 years or 5.8 years. I don't remember the exact amount. And they've been doing this for decades, and that's their current data on payback. So while theoretically there is a concern that somebody could live to, 90, 95, and people do that, even if they start at 75, which I think might be a good way to start until the program kind of reaches its own equilibrium. This would be an outlier because people do die sooner for the most part, and also people have to sell their houses due to health reasons. They have to go into senior housing or a long-term care facility. There are all sorts of reasons why people don't tend to stay in their houses until their very final years, and therefore it's repaid. Also, I can see an experience where somebody has caregiving duties. Let's say one member of the family supplements their income and is able to pay. They're able to pay taxes very easily because, in addition to retirement income, they have additional business or freelance or salary income. But if a member of the family requires caregiving, which happens more and more when you're older, and they cannot engage in their occupation for a source of additional income, then that year they could be in trouble with paying taxes. However, assuming the caregiving is no longer needed, and the person can go back to their occupation, then I'm sure they'd be glad to repay as soon as possible in order not to have a lien hanging over their home. So there are all sorts of scenarios where this could come into effect, and the timeline would also vary considerably. There are worst case scenarios, but there also will be the case of people who just need it for a year to get by under unusual circumstances.
So can I ask if let's say I was in the program for 5 years and suddenly I didn't need to be in the program for that particular year. Do I owe those back taxes then, or is it still only on sale? So you just pay your current taxes, and then you could reapply the following year.
Yes, and you have to be up to date in your current taxes in order to qualify to start with. So that's important. But no, the state law which governs this, and every town that I've heard of follows that state law. They don't adjust that. They may adjust the age or the interest or the income, but they don't adjust when it's due, which is it's due on any transfer of the property through sale or through an estate, or whatever reason the property is transferred.
Any other comments or questions for Vivian?
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, my concern is the long-term implications for the town and things like, if someone takes out a second mortgage, where would we be in terms of the list? And, there's a lot of things that I know the finance committee are exploring, but, I think about, people that take out second mortgages and where, the charge would go. And so there's
I can answer that. The town, in order to qualify each year, that's one of the reasons the town has to review. You can't just enroll in the program and continue, because each year you have to show what other mortgages or anything like that you have, and you have to get permission from anyone else who has an interest in the property, that the town is the first has the first lien or the primary lien. So that would not be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, generally banks they want to be the first. So that might be a challenge, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that is an issue, in which case, I mean, that's one of the things one of the assessors said, that they try to come up with other programs for seniors who would otherwise qualify, but they already have a second mortgage, and the bank won't sign off. But that does not leave the town finances in any problem. It leaves the senior looking for other options, and some towns do offer other options that I won't go into now. I haven't researched those thoroughly, but I think we should, once I have time. after spending a lot of time learning about this, it's been a real education for me. So I guess unless there are any other questions, I have a question for you, which is, as a committee, what would you feel comfortable in stating in terms of a motion? Obviously, it's up to the finance committee and the select board to recommend what should be on the warrant, what the town policy should be. But within that, very important part, is there anything that you could say as a committee, having read everything that I sent you and having now had this discussion?
I mean, personally, I think it's out of our really jurisdiction. So I really think it lands with the finance committee ultimately and the select board. So I don't know how the other committee members feel, but.
Well, I think since we're dealing with housing, I think we can certainly make a recommendation. It's not binding, but it's a recommendation.
Yes, exactly. Just like the Council on Aging, they're not determining the town finances, but they voted unanimously to support the town moving forward on this, as decided by the Finance Committee and the Select Board.
Well, Vivian, I'd like to thank you for all the time and effort that you've put into this. And I'm sure I could speak for the committee to say that we certainly appreciate it. I certainly appreciate, anyone who's looking at the fiscal side of this housing problem, because I think there are some places like the senior tax deferral that we can tap into to help people stay in their homes moving forward. So I certainly appreciate all the research you've done. Garfield, do you have something?
I was just going to say, if we didn't feel, I have to agree with Jonathan, if we didn't feel to do it as a committee, at least we can do it individually. We'll speak volumes as well, but it would be nice, and it's be one of those things, like when I was an associate, it's not really, I don't have a vote, but I certainly have a say. And for us to say that it's a good idea does not hurt.
I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I move that we send a positive recommendation on the suggestion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
A positive recommendation to do what?
That's the suggestion that the town adopt the deferral of the senior tax deferral.
Well, I don't feel comfortable because I don't have all the information. So although, as I said, philosophically, I support it, I can't support it unless I have all the information. So I would have to, wait to or add something saying dependent on the results of the finance committee.
So that's right. Why not say that?
That's understood anyway.
Right.
It's just a recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I would add that then, dependent on the recommendations or the information provided by the finance committee. So just to add that.
So you're saying you'd rather wait until so you don't feel comfortable saying?
I just don't have all the information. I just feel like philosophically, yes, it's great, but I really want to know the cost of the town, and I want to know the long-term implications. So.
Well, I understand. Right, I think we're just speaking right now of whether or not we think it's a good idea. Of course, none of us have all the little facts. We're still doing homework, and we're aware of that. And when the finance company says yes, then we're okay. But right now, I think we're just speaking of whether or not we idea. I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, Lee. But then that's what happens when the time vote comes. That's when you'll have. That's when.
Okay, so I guess if we could just amend it, saying with on the condition, or with some conditions that like we are in favor with, and then add the condition provided that the information provided from the finance committee is favorable, or. I mean, that's how I am. I'm not telling you guys how to vote, but that's what I would feel comfortable doing. That's all. So.
Is there an objection to the amendment?
No.
So I have a motion and a second stating to send a positive recommendation to, who are we sending this to, John?
I think the finance committee and the select board.
Mm-hmm. To send a positive recommendation for the adoption of the senior tax deferral given that the Finance Committee's findings are favorable to the town.
Perfect.
Roll call vote on the motion. Jonathan?
Aye.
Garfield?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So with that, Vivian, we bid you adieu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to stay on and hear what you're going to say about the short-term rentals. I'm really interested in that. And but unfortunately, I have to leave at 6:30. So if I leave, it's not because I'm not interested, but I will be here and I will mute myself. But I realize you have a lot of important things to discuss, and they're of interest to all of us.
Great, thanks. So with that, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is the discussion of short-term rental proposed bylaw. Before we start, I'd just like to commend Lee for the time and energy she put into it. It's really her bylaw that came together, and I think it's a pretty thoughtful proposal. Chris, Lee wanted to have access to the screen, so if you can give her access to the screen so she can make presentation of the proposal to us, that would be great. You should be able to, Lee.
I do, yeah, thanks. Before I share the screen, I just wanted to thank everyone for allowing me to take a stab at it, and thank you, Pedro, for that recognition. It's been really interesting doing this research and looking at different towns, how they've really taken on this topic of short-term rentals. I've researched other towns ranging from Cambridge and Boston and Salem, Washington, D.C., Lenox, Richmond, Nantucket, and so forth. So there's been a lot of research that went into this. I've also listened to and read the concerns from many, many citizens, which I'm very grateful that everyone has reached out and offered their thoughtful suggestions and comments. So these have all been taken into consideration. First off, I'd like to say before I share the screen is that this is not an outright ban of short-term rentals. So I can understand that in the last couple committee meetings, there's a lot of discussion, and I offered some points in the last meeting. Some of them that have remained, a lot of them are gone now. So you'll notice that it's quite a different looking draft of the bylaw. But what I've really done is try to focus on Great Barrington residents and what's the best for the residents that own primary homes here, that are full-time residents, and taking on board that a lot of people rely on short-term rentals as a way to get by. Whether that's going away for a holiday and renting out their entire home and not being there, or renting out rooms to try to make ends meet. So I've really taken on the community first kind of initiative and putting the Great Barrington residents first and foremost in this. So what you will see is that, as I mentioned, this is not a ban of short-term rentals, and it's more of a community first initiative. What I have really focused on is strengthening community and allowing the protection of the long-term residential rental market, protecting that. So really strengthening the long-term residential rental market. We see that there's evidence that there is a 0% rental vacancy rate currently. So that means that there are no rentals available, or if they go for something goes up for rent, it's snapped up very quickly. And I think anyone that looks at social media or has friends looking for places, the minute that something comes on the market, it's snatched up. Also, this is a way to protect the entry-level home ownership market. So when I talk about entry-level, we're talking about the starter homes, single and multifamily homes, which are used traditionally by people wanting to move here and start families. Also for seniors that are wishing to downsize. So traditionally, a lot of these, or recently, a lot of these starter homes have been bought up by investors and used as Airbnb. So my hope is that this draft of the bylaw, or this bylaw, would open up that market more for more long-term residential rentals and starter homes. This would also support full-time residency in Great Barrington, as I mentioned, by enabling owners of primary residences to continue to earn money from their own homes and to better afford to live here, maintain their properties, and contribute to the community. You'll notice that this discourages real estate speculation by limiting short-term rentals to be only operated from a primary residence. And with that, it helps protect and maintain the residential character of existing neighborhoods. And how that does is that if a short-term rental is operated from a primary residence, it's usually a neighbor. So you know who's operating it next to you. So if they do go away, you can feel good that it's your neighbor, they've done their due diligence, and they'll usually check in and care for the property more so than an absentee landlord that is just an investor. So I really tried to frame this new draft really around what benefits the Great Barrington full-time residents. So having said that, you'll notice that when I start walking through this, that this is that there's no new taxes, there's no registration requirement, there's no permit fees, there's no inspection requirements, there's no limit on the number of days you can offer your home, and this is all to primary residents. There's no minimum stay requirements for short-term rental. This allows local booking agents to continue to earn a living from facilitating short-term rentals. This is a fine-based model rather than a fee-based model, so that's where the no taxes come in and no permit fees come in. The money will be self-sustaining, or this initiative would be self-sustaining through fines, through hefty fines. So one of the research that I've done is talking to Granicus, who offers monitoring and compliance software for government agencies. And we had a nice talk. Chris and Pedro were on the call, and they showed us the ability for the town to monitor all the short-term rentals in town through a map-based model. So we can quickly zoom in and shape a map and zoom in and find where the short-term rentals are operating straight away. So it's one of these really interesting compliance and monitoring software that will help the town monitor this and use a fine-based system. So just talking with them, it's something that is affordable and that is very, very effective. So I felt good about relying on a fine-based model rather than looking for registration and permit fees to drive this bylaw. So you'll notice that the talk of registration is gone from this particular draft, and the talk of limiting the number of days is also gone. So with that, I will share my screen. Let me just pretty it up a little bit. Okay. So I've hit shared screen. It says host disabled participant sharing, screen sharing. I'm not sure. Chris, do you have that? Anyone who's the host?
Try it now.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is very simple. I've tried to keep it very, very focused. Oh, it's not up. Okay. I can see it. Let me try again.
On your computer.
All right,
okay.
Coming through.
You see now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is real straightforward, and I'll just run through. I know that the committee members have gotten this a few days ago, so I won't read through everything. I'll just recap the purposes and hit some of the high points of this. So again, the aim of this bylaw is to protect the long-term residential rental market and entry-level home ownership market, to support full-time residency in Great Barrington by enabling owners of primary residences to earn extra money from their primary residences, to afford better to live here, maintain their properties, and contribute to the community. Discourage real estate speculation, and protect and maintain the residential character of existing neighborhoods. So we had some definitions. One of the big changes with the definition, if we look at short-term rental, an occupied property that is not a hotel, motel, lodging house, or bed and breakfast establishment where at least one room or unit is rented out by an operator through the use of reservations for a period of fewer than 30 consecutive calendar days for a fee. Only a primary residence or a unit/room in a primary residence or a secondary unit on the same tax parcel as the primary residence can be operated as a short-term rental. A short-term rental may or may not be facilitated through a booking agent. So this is really the big change, is that short-term rentals have to be operated from a primary residence or a secondary unit on the same tax parcel as a primary residence. So this could be a cottage, this could be a barn, this could be a room in a garage, as long as it's on the same tax parcel. It's for a period of fewer than 30 calendar days, and it can be facilitated with or without a booking agent. So if we have, let's say, a local booking agent, let's say you want to rent out your primary residence, let's say for a month, and you might want someone to actually do the heavy lifting and arrange that this can be done. Some other primary resident, I wanted to kind of highlight this definition.
Lee, can I just emphasize one thing on there, just to be clear? You're saying that that the rentals have to be in the primary residence.
Correct.
Right? Okay, so that I don't know if there's any clarification that needs to be made as to what and how you establish a primary residency.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to do that. I don't know.
So I'm going to, so that's why I'm going to read the definition of a primary residence right now. So primary residence, the definition is the dwelling where the operator resides for at least 6 months out of a 12-month period, not merely for a special or limited purpose, but with a present intention of making it their true, fixed, permanent home and principal establishment. A person can only have one primary residence at a given time. Upon request from the town, a primary residence is demonstrated by 3 of the following 5 documents: motor vehicle registration, federal income tax return, driver's license, voter registration, other state issued identification. So that's the definition of a primary residence. So the dwelling where the operator resides for at least 6 months out of a 12-month period. So basically you have your domicile, so you'd only have one. So this would be the equivalent of that. And upon request from the town, you would demonstrate that by 3 of the following documents that I listed. A primary resident, I guess that's kind of really a repeat almost of what I've mentioned. A natural person. So a natural person is differentiates between, let's say, an LLC or a corporation. So a natural person who is the legal owner of a primary residence that they seek to offer as a short-term rental and has resided in the primary residence for 6 of the past 12 months before promoting the property's availability. So this is really to discourage people from buying a home and turning around and operating it as the Airbnb, let's say. So you want someone that has established a residency here, that is invested in this community, that has, their voter registration is here, their car is here. So we really want to see that it's a member of this community that has made an investment into this community. I'll just move, the operator. So an operator of a short-term rental is, again, it's a natural person, meaning this is distinguished from a person such as a corporation or LLC. So a natural person who is the legal owner of the residential unit/room they seek to offer as a short-term rental. Only one owner may be an operator for a residential unit/room. The operator must meet the qualifications of a primary resident to offer a residential unit/room for short-term rental. So you can see it's very, very focused on the primary resident, the Great Barrington full-time resident here. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just going to, again, pick up some highlights and then ask for discussion. So the big change that you'll see here from the last conversation was no residential unit or room shall be offered as a short-term rental except in compliance with the provisions of the section. Ineligible residential units and rooms are residential units, rooms not located within the operator's primary residence. So this, I really wanted to distinguish this between a second home or an investment property. So there might be Great Barrington residents that live here full time, but also have investment property. So that would not discourage them from using their own primary residence for short-term rental operation. That would discourage them from using an investment property for that reason. So they would still be able to operate short-term rentals, but would be limited to their primary residence. So that's a big change. There's a restriction on income in terms of the ineligible units. There's income restricted units, which are subject to affordability covenants. So that's listed here. Any property that is in violation of the building code, the fire code, the sanitary code, or town general bylaws. So in this, and I'll go through the requirements and limitations. This is probably what most people are interested in. So again, as I mentioned, there's no mention of registration here. There's no mention of requiring permit fees. So this is very, very different. So again, what we're using and what we're relying on is this compliance software that is very, very complex and very capable of tracking in real time short-term rentals. So for example, when they did show this to us the other day, they could zoom in and see that there's 210 listings. And they scrape, I believe, 200 or 300 different sites. So it can be anywhere from Airbnbs to Google to Facebook. They check everywhere, community boards to see if they're short-term rentals. They take snapshots. So it's all based on monitoring software. So we don't need to require the registration. And short-term rentals are anyways required by the state to register. So I felt that there was no need to put that requirement there. And again, I did not want to make anything onerous for citizens in Great Barrington. I didn't want to make this a cash grab or see this as a cash grab. So again, there's no permit fees. It's really all about protecting Great Barrington citizens. So looking at requirements and limitations, operators may not rent simultaneously to more than one party under separate contracts. If multiple rooms are available, or if more than one dwelling unit exists on a single parcel, they must be rented together by the same party, or may be rented out one at a time with no overlap. So let's say you have, a big house and you have an ADU. You can rent everything out, but it has to be under one contract. So we're trying to really, or in this case, I'm trying to discourage it competing with, let's say, B&Bs or motels and hotels. So if you have a family that wants to actually use all the rooms and the ADU, as long as it's on the same contract, that's fine. Parking for short-term rentals must be on site. So I listened to some comments from residents concerned about the parking. So there's no limitations on parking. The limitation is that it's on site. So this trusts that you will have the room. If you rent it out to 4 people or 5 people or 6 people, you must have all the rentals on site. So this discourages people from using parking on the street. Short-term rentals involving tents, amplified music, or typically requiring an entertainment license from the town are not allowed. So again, we're just trying to focus on the character and retaining the neighborhood. So we're really discouraging this in this bylaw. Occupancy within a short-term rental shall be limited to 10 guests or 2 guests per bedroom, which is fewer, whichever is fewer. So basically 10 guests maximum, but it's dependent on the bedroom. So if you have 4 bedrooms, then you can have 8 guests. If you have 3 bedrooms, you can have 6 guests. But we're limiting, or in this case, this is being limited to 10. And this is just to discourage the big party houses. So I realize that there are many properties that have a lot of rooms, but this just kind of gets more of a handle on that. So it doesn't become such of an operation with so many people. In multifamily homes, the primary resident of each unit may operate a short-term rental, since each unit in a multifamily home is a separate primary residence. However, a person who resides in one multifamily unit may not operate a short-term rental in another unit because the unit is not their primary residence. So again, we're just focused on, if this is your primary residence, go ahead, do what you need. You can be, it can be an owner-occupied short-term rental, or it could be non-owner-occupied, but it has to be your primary residence. So this is a little bit information about the multifamily situation. Operators shall provide short-term renters with applicable trash, noise, parking, and other local regulations. When the operator is not present, the operator shall provide short-term renters with contact information for locally available contact designated to respond to all emergencies and problems that may arise during the period, whether from renters, neighbors, or municipal authorities. So here, I know in other municipalities, they really honed in on inspections and fire alarms and sprinklers and things like this. And my thought here was, if it's your primary residence, you're going to have more care and thought into to making your residence safe, and that you're held to a higher standard. So you'll be more accountable. So I didn't want to put too many limitations and lists here, but provide, ensure that the operators would provide the renters with the basics that they need to know. So that's where that is. Enforcement, this is something that I'm seeking legal opinion. This has to be flushed out. The reason being is that if it's a hefty fine, such as $1,000 a day. So number one, any person who offers a residential unit room as a short-term rental, or any booking agent who accepts a fee for booking a unit room as a short-term rental. So booking agent meaning someone that is facilitating it on behalf of the operator. So not Airbnb, but someone working with the operator, where it's not eligible, shall be fined $1,000 per violation. Each day's failure to comply with a notice of violation or any other order shall constitute a separate violation. Now, on first blush, people say, well, this is extremely high. And talking to Granicus, which is the operator of the compliance software, they said this is actually what you want to do. You want to have a strong deterrent, because what happens if you have something that's not so high, let's say a $300 a day violation, a lot of investors would have built this into their plan, into their bottom line. So they will say, well, it's the cost of business. So I'm going to, try my luck and put my short-term rental up. And, if I can rent it out for a couple of days before I'm caught, that's just the cost of doing business. So we're really trying to deter. So that's why the reason why the fines are so high. And also this will be self-sustaining. So, if there are violations, that money will be going towards the payment of this compliance software, which will help us identify ineligible units. And also it would be my hope, if there was extra monies available from the enforcement of short-term rental bylaw, that money would go to a housing fund that would go towards the building of housing, whether it's senior housing, market rate housing, any type of housing. So this is just one piece of the puzzle in terms of, looking at the shortage of housing. So I know that there's many other ways to really tackle the lack of housing that's going on, the crisis actually that's going on right now. So, but I felt that this was a very, very important step to get a handle on, because again, as I've mentioned, is that a lot of families, particularly, and people that want to live here are being forced out of our community. So this is a way to level the playing field out, to hopefully open up some more supply of long-term rentals and starter homes, particularly. So just going back to the Granicus research, if you have the 210 listings that are currently on in Great Barrington right now, short-term rentals, 90% of those are entire homes. So let's say if we even get 100 of those off the short-term rentals, if they're ineligible, that could be 100 new long-term rentals. That could be 100 new families here. That could be starter homes that are not currently on the market. So I really see this as a way to control the out of the skyrocketing rents and the skyrocketing prices of homes. And this is one way I think of tackling that. So thank you very much for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions, and I will stop the screen.
I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Suppose it's not the case, but suppose my accountant recommended that, because I own multiple properties, that I put them all in an LLC.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still my primary residence. Does this prohibit me from using this?
You could only have one primary residence. So one of those could be used as a short-term, but not all of them, no. You wouldn't be able to use an LLC. You'd have to use your name.
So, well, that doesn't make any sense if it's my primary residence.
What do you mean?
I mean, people buy properties and put them in trusts. They put them in
Mm-hmm.
LLCs. They put them all sorts of things. That doesn't mean it's not their primary residence.
Well, as I mentioned, you live there. You physically live in the home
Right.
for 6 months. So it's not something that you buy and that you go check on, or it's your actual domicile. It's your principal.
I understand that, and I meet that obligation, but it's owned by an LLC.
Okay, so if you can show that that's your true primary, so yes, I see what you're saying. If you can show that that is your true primary residence, I'm sure that would be fine.
Okay, and also enforcement seems like a big issue here. And what are you going to do? Are you going to do what Texas did and kind of pay people a bounty?
No.
busting people? How do you do this?
No. This software is, and Pedro was on the call as well, so he could probably, and so was Chris. This is very sophisticated software, so there's no need for citizen vigilante type of enforcement. So if that's what you're speaking to, this is one of these things that they scan, or they do a scrape of information every 2 days. So they look at the calendars of the short-term rentals to see if, let's say, on one day it's offered and the next day it's not. They have photos taken from various ways of the actual residences, so they actually go and do the legwork. So we would never ever try to get the citizen vigilante.
The software matches the listing data with the assessor's database, so you know who's who and what the use is and where they live, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So this would be kind of a way to cross-check with the assessor's data and
this does not require, even though the state requires registration, this does not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the numbers that you're throwing out are significantly more than the number of registered short-term rentals.
Yep.
So how does that work?
So they have unique listings, and then they have the short-term listings. So the 210 number that I have was the actual individual listings. And when you get down to the unique listings in terms of households, I think it was like 165, or it was closer to what the registration is. It doesn't match exactly because not everyone registers them with the state, but it's closer to the number that you would see in the state. Jonathan,
it's reasonably close.
So you don't think this will drive people underground?
Well, this is, that's why this meeting was so valuable for me. And I really hesitated to put this draft out until I spoke with Granicus. Now they are used all over the country. So Boston uses them. They're doing work with New Orleans right now. They have towns that are as small as, I think they said 300 people. So they have a whole range of work they've done for other municipalities. And they have a dashboard that they can personalize just for Great Barrington. So dependent on what's ineligible in our bylaws, then it would be able to show us the ineligible residences. So let's say if it's based on if you're a primary resident, you're not, it would be able to cross-check with the assessor's data who is actually a primary resident. So we would do some cross-checking internally as a town. So we would see, let's say, the 210 listings, and then we would be able to take those listings and track it to the assessor's data and see the names that are listed there. So Jonathan, in answer to your question, if let's say you have your primary residence listed as LLC for tax reasons, we would see that, and then we would just do a little bit of legwork to trace that to your principal residency.
And who does?
I think, John, I think people, the only way they would be able to go underground is if they started renting their homes word of mouth, because this company they mine pretty much all of the classifieds that are available on the internet, and I think even off the internet.
And so who monitors it, though?
They do.
They have hundreds and hundreds of people.
They've got algorithms.
They have ex-planners too.
And what is that?
Yeah, they have lots of ex-planners. Yeah, I think that's what Chris's next job is.
And what does that cost the town?
So the quote that they gave us was just under $10,000 for 210 listings a year. And that was that's address identification. So it basically gave us a complete scan of all the listings every 2 days. So everything was updated every 2 days and gave us a dashboard to control what's compliant and what's not compliant. So it's very, very powerful software.
And you mentioned we now allow basically a two family plus an ADU by right. So you've got 3 units by right in a property. And if I had a 2 family and I lived in one of them, but I owned the 2 family and an ADU, can I rent them both short term?
As long as it's on the same contract, yeah. So if that's your home, you can rent out, all your rooms as long as it's under one contract. It's just, it gets, what this does is limit separate contracts. So you can't almost become a B&B and have, separate rooms and units for separate families. So you could rent out as many, up to 2 people per room, per unit. You can rent those out, but it would just be under one contract. Yeah. So, this really, and the nice thing I should emphasize is this goes for non-owner occupied residences. So you can, as a primary resident, you can go away for 3 months, 4 months. There's people that work in camps. There's people that go to Florida. So this gives you the power of not having to be present. So this doesn't change anything for you. You can still leave and get the benefits of short-term rental. So I was very mindful of folks that do that, because I know that's really an important part of Great Barrington, and some seasonal workers and people that rely on going away every summer for work or for play. So I wanted to make sure that residents still had an opportunity to do that. And when people talk about, you still have entire residences rented out as short-term rentals, how is that going to help the neighborhood? The difference is that your neighbor is doing that. So if my neighbor is Airbnb is short-term rentaling their home for 2 months, they're accountable. And I know that they've rented it out, that they've taken care, this is their primary home. And it's a lot different from a neighbor next to you that you don't know, that Airbnb's it, and you have no idea, when the next crew is going to come in. So this really holds owners of homes more accountable. And I think in a lot of ways, the quality will go up. So you still have an opportunity to find a short-term rental in Great Barrington. And in a lot of ways, the quality will be better because it's going to be someone that actually lives here, that cares about the community, that cares about the neighborhood, that really puts some thought into their room, that it's not just an investment property. It's not just for profit. It's actually out of necessity. And so I think the quality in the short-term rentals will go up as well. So at least that's what my hope is.
And so if you wanted to rent for 30 or say 31 days or more, it's not, you could do that. That's unaffected by this.
Yeah. So that would be a long-term rental. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Raphael, you got anything?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can't hear you, bud.
Sorry, I'm just saying I have nothing, but I'm liking what I'm hearing. So I'm happy.
So I just wanted to emphasize one thing. So again, if, let's say we had the 210 listings and we didn't have time to look deeper and see out of those who are primary residences, or who is a primary resident that's operating that, because that actually takes some time. So I can't turn around and say, okay, out of the 210 short-term rentals currently online right now, X amount are operated by investors or LLCs. But I would say that there's, at least a good percentage of them. So if you even say that, let's say out of 200, we get 50 homes on the market, right? So now we've taken, 50 homes that would now be ineligible for short-term rentals, and we turn them into long-term rentals, or they go back on the market and are sold as homes. We're adding to the supply. So you think about the cost of construction and the cost of, building housing, whether it's market rate or affordable or starter home, that's 50 homes we're creating. So I think this is pretty substantial. We don't have a number yet, but I think it's something that we can monitor. The nice thing with the software is that we own this data. So we can come back in a year's time and say, yes, look how many homes that we've brought onto the market. These are the percentages. So that's personally what I'm very happy about, is that it's very, very data driven, and we will be able to turn around and come back with a report for the town to say the results from this initiative.
All right, well, if I may, I'd like to kind of broaden the discussion a little bit here. I'd like to introduce just some thoughts I have on this whole subject. I'll start just by mentioning a few sort of data points. So in our town, we've got around 2,830 households. Of those households, are roughly 34% are rentals, right? So 34% of every place that we can live in town is a rental. Of those, we have roughly about 180 that are short-term or available for short-term, which is 19% of the rental stock and just 6% of all of our housing stock. All right, just keep that in mind. So if we look at the population numbers for the 2020 census, we have an increase of around 230 new citizens into town, correlated with a decrease in rentals of 195 units, which also is correlated to a slight increase in the owners, in home owners in our town. Okay? I hope you're following where I'm going with this. Some things that we don't know about short-term rentals, we really don't know at this moment. We don't know who they are. We don't know if they are primary residents, if they are businesses, if they're second homeowners, if they are owner residents or residents that are investors. We also don't really know what would happen if a home is not a short-term. I would hope that the 50 or the 100 units that would come off the market with this bylaw would really enter the market. First of all, I would hope that they would become long-term rentals, or that I would hope that any number of those units would at least qualify as starter homes, but we don't know that. We also really don't know what effect short-term rentals is having on the housing stock. Now, I just gave you some numbers that short-term rentals represent just 6% of all the units that are of every single household that's available in town. That doesn't seem like a lot to me, right? That's 94% of all of the units that are available, that are not short-term rentals today. So I don't know what effect it's really having on the housing supply. And we have to ask the question, are these units that are being used as short-term rentals, are they really starter homes? Are they really homes that are going to cost $180,000, $220,000? We have to ask that question. Some benefits to short-term rentals, it allows many, many residents in town to afford staying in Great Barrington, seniors in particular, and, people of all income levels. It encourages tourists to come into town to use our facilities, to use our stores and our all of the sort of infrastructure that we have, from plumbers to everybody else. Taxes come back to town right now. Registered short-term rentals have to pay something to the equivalence of a hotel tax now, and I've learned that if it wouldn't have been for the short-term rentals, at least this year, we would have had a big sort of a downfall in the hotel tax. So in other words, the short-term rentals this year have sort of balanced out the losses that the hotels and bed and breakfasts had over the pandemic period. Short-term rentals allow for business opportunities for local people. I understand that the big concern is that people from out of town, and I'm concerned, especially there's a building in downtown that's owned by a private equity firm in New York City that I think is doing the town great harm. So I'm very sensitive to that issue, but it also allows many people who do live here to invest and to sort of pursue a career where other careers are not, available. Our economy is tourist dependent, and then after that, it's very hard to make a career in town. And, again, I'll just emphasize again all of the benefits to the different trades and the different businesses. And I'm talking, housekeeping, maintenance people, plumbers, everybody else. So I'm a little, in general, I'm still kind of wondering why we need to pursue this thing. It doesn't seem to me to be having a great effect. We don't have issues like they have in Stockbridge, which I learned today that, more than half of Stockbridge's total households are owned by second homeowners. Like, that is a huge problem. I don't know that we have that problem in Great Barrington. And if we do, it wouldn't be, the numbers tell us that those units are not coming up as short-term rentals. One positive thing I think that we can do out of this committee with regards to short-term rentals is adopt a 3% impact fee that the state allows us to collect. I think we as a committee can send this recommendation to the select board, and it's an impact fee that potentially I believe could be used for a housing fund, or it could be used to directly fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So again, this is my thinking on this issue, and Leah, I think you did a really great job. I was impressed, since you mentioned that this was, you don't have a lot of experience, putting together policy. I think you did a really nice job, and I think it's very thoughtful. I'm just really not sure that it's necessary. I'm not sure that, in coming out of this committee, like our mandate really is to move forward and create opportunities for housing in town. And I'm just not sure that a short-term rental issue in our town warrants this type of regulation.
Could I answer to that?
Sure.
So you talked about that you feel like it's really not making an impact, the short-term rental. But you talk about 9%, but we're still talking, 180 short-term rentals. So, I mean, that's a lot of families that would like to live here that possibly couldn't live here. So I think that you're in a way devaluing lives in a way, because these are people that have moved away from the community because there's no rentals available, or that they've really wanted to buy a home, but they've been, priced out by investors that, can offer cash and that can, turn around and see that as a easy way to make money. So you talk about the percentages, but I'm talking about the people. And I'm really trying to put people instead of profit, first. So basically, this is a people-driven initiative. So I definitely have an issue with the way that you characterize that. You don't think this is an issue. There's still 180 possible homes that can come onto the market that aren't on the market right now. And I don't think even it matters whether they're starter homes or not. We just want housing. So there's lots of professionals that want to move here that can't. So it's not necessarily starter homes. I mean, it's nurses, it's police officers, it's teachers. It's people working, above Tom's Toys in software development. So we're not just talking about starter homes and affordable homes. We're talking about homes in general. So I definitely have the issue. And I absolutely agree with taking different approaches in terms of solving the housing price crisis. And this is one of many opportunities that we have. But I think this is an important opportunity. And I think this is a deterrent, because we don't want this to become a Stockbridge or Nantucket. And the more that people see this as a way to make profit and cash in, the more problems we'll have as a community, keeping the fabric together and ensuring that more businesses don't close down because they have no staff. I've seen certainly just from walking around Main Street, you can see the amount of businesses that have shut down. And a lot of times it's because of staffing issues. And I certainly hear enough friends that are looking for rentals or looking for homes that would love to stay in Great Barrington, and that have been forced to move to Pittsfield, North Adams. And once they move there, they're not going to work here. They're not going to commute an hour and a half. So once you lose those people, because they can't find homes, then you're gonna take away the staffing for businesses, and then you have businesses staff closed down. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is not a ban on short-term rentals. There's going to be plenty of short-term rentals available. It's just going to be done through primary residence. So it's going to be at a higher quality. It's going to be something that is offered to people that live here that actually need the money to stay here. So that's the big difference. So there'll still be plenty of short-term rentals. I doubt that it's going to shut down everything. And we have hotels and we have motels and we have bed and breakfasts. So it's not like it's going to stop the tourist industry. It's just going to narrow the focus to people that actually care about the places that they're renting out as short-term rentals.
Well, I'm not sure. Hold on a second. I'm not sure why it's necessary to say that I'm devaluing lives. I just have a different perspective than you do on this. It seems like you're coming from a place where all the short-term rentals are owned by people that are trying to take advantage of the town. And what I'm pointing out is that if that really existed, we would be seeing numbers in the 35 to 45% rather than the 9%, of available short-term rentals in town. So what I'm suggesting is that it's not a free-for-all. The other thing I think that you're assuming that I'm not is that the people who are putting the short-term rentals on the market are not people who are primary residents, are not people who live in their homes who are renting rooms or who are renting ADUs or who are leaving their homes for a week and going and live with a friend so that they can make a little extra money. So, and I, just like you, I have plenty of people that I've spoken to who have not been able to find rentals or even homes for sale in town. But I also know plenty of people who have to rent their homes or rent rooms in their homes in order to pay their taxes, in order to pay their mortgages, in order to pay their student loans, in order to put their kids through college. So I'm not devaluing anybody's life. I'm just taking a more nuanced approach than to just say that the short-term rental the short-term rentals in our town are strictly like investors and that are looking to take advantage of our tourist economy.
No, I'm very sorry if I really phrase it that way. What I'm trying just to do is give the residents here, more of a level playing field, because I really feel that it's hard for them to compete against the investors that come in, with profit in mind. So just as an anecdote, someone had sent me a picture. I won't mention who it is, but of a billboard that's currently in Great Barrington, and I guess you guys really can't see it. But anyways, it says Berkshire Vacation Rentals by Marigo Property Management. This is right across from the package store. Monetize your vacation home, mirrorgroup.com. So this is a huge billboard right in Great Barrington when you come into Great Barrington. Monetize your vacation home. So basically what they're saying is, this is a place that, you can come to and have, monetize your home that you're not even a primary resident. It's a second home. So, and then when you go onto their website, Marigo Group, it's a Boston property management company. They have a case study of Great Barrington, and they talk about, the 12-month financial performance. And they talk about, okay, if your purchase price of a Great Barrington home is $384,000, you'll have an annual cash on cash return of 24.5%. So, when you talk about, we only have 9% of short-term rentals, when you see big billboards in Great Barrington as we speak, talking about monetizing your vacation home. So this is even someone that lives here. This is a second homeowner that wants to Airbnb out. So, this is an issue. We are seeing people turn to Great Barrington as a way to cash in. So I think this is a big deterrent, and I think this will make an impact. But the beauty with this is that we have a way to track the data. So for me, we owe it to the residents to let them vote on this. And I think that's really ultimately where we'll see where it lands. And to stop that, I would have very serious concern not to let the citizens vote on this.
No, I'm not suggesting that I'm going to stop it. This is going to, without objection, we're going to recommend it to a review of the planning board and select board. I'm just, broadening the discussion and giving my opinion. Garfield, you got something?
I was just going to say that one thing you stated, Pedro, that you weren't sure of who these people are, or the people that are doing the short-term rentals. You said yourself, we don't know them. So we don't know what they're doing. We don't know the services that they're using. And also, one of the things I think of, and I could be wrong, but let's think of an affirmative action. This is done because it is needed to be done. There has been a misguidance, there's been a slight to someone, so we're trying to make it up. Everyone's not going to be happy, because that doesn't happen, even with affirmative actions. A lot of people are against it, but we also know it's needed. This kind of strikes me as the same vein. We're not going to make everyone happy. We do need places for people of Great Barrington to live. You're going to, and as Lee said, it's not going to stop people, as you said yourself, people in their homes. This is what she's advocated. If it's your primary, you can still do these things. But I think, and I can be way off. I'm really into the moral aspects of things, and I am into the people aspect. And I do know that this is something that is needed. And again, everyone's not going to be happy, and some things have to be done because they need to be done. They need to be righted. The wrongs need to be righted. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I see it as something that we should look at seriously.
John?
Yeah, under purposes, you say you want to discourage real estate speculation, which I like the idea, but I have to confess that every real estate purchase, no matter by whom, is speculation, because you don't know what it's going to be worth tomorrow. So, how do you do that?
Well, your home is your biggest investment that you'll ever make.
You're still speculating.
Well, Okay, you're twisting it.
You're getting a little semantic there,
Jonathan. You're playing with words here. All right. So your home is your investment. It's where you're going to raise your kids. It's where you're going to volunteer in your community. It's where you're going to work hopefully and retire in. So that is an investment. What I'm trying to deter is people that come in to speculate solely as for profit. That profit is their number one reason for buying a home here. So I'm hoping that people buy homes here because they want to invest in the community, that they want to be a part of the community, that they want to volunteer, and they want to raise their kids, and they want to retire here. So that's what I'm talking about, speculation. It's either profit driven or it's a motive that you actually want to set down roots here. So I'm just trying to give a leg up to people that have invested in this community and want to stay here.
So Lee, you had messaged me earlier saying you made a couple of small changes.
Yeah,
do you want to go over those changes just for Jonathan and Garfield
sure.
before we?
It was just on this. You'll probably see it. Let's see. I changed. Well, let me just get the email up. Yeah, so it's just three changes. So on 7/24, I changed the word Board of Health to Sanitary Code because that's what it is. On 7/25, I changed duplex to multifamily. And on 720.6 under enforcement, I deleted that entire line. The line said all violations of this section may be penalized by non-criminal disposition as provided by General Law Chapter 4021D. The reason this was taken out is because I realized that general law maxes out at $300. And if the fine is above $300, we're going to have to find another way to address the enforcement. So that was taken out, and I am seeking a legal opinion how to address enforcement. But that's it. That's everything else is there.
And Chris, you had mentioned something about a conversation with Dineski about what pre-existing uses as opposed to non-conforming. We're not using grandfathering anymore, but could you speak to that?
Staff is in conversation with town council to determine whether and how, if passed, a regulation like this would impact people who are already using their properties, whether it's the principal residence or not, using it as a short-term rental. So we're trying to figure that out. Without a definitive opinion, I don't want to say anything here, but we're looking at that issue that zoning can create certain vested rights for uses that are legally pre-existing to a change in the zoning bylaw. So that's what we are investigating with town council now.
So that may be the case with every one of the what would become illegal short-term rentals. Potentially.
What may be the case? Sorry.
That they would have vested rights if they've been doing it.
It may be the case. It may not be the case. It'll probably turn on definitions and state law and the interactions of those various statutes.
And it has to be zoning. It can't be in the town code.
We're investigating that as well.
Okay.
Chris, but in any case, isn't this something we could address in the bylaw?
As it moves forward, sure.
Right. Okay.
Oh, you mean adding a provision?
Right.
To protect or not protect certain?
Right.
Possibly. That's something that we would explore. So I'm sorry, I don't have a definitive answer at this time.
Right, is there anything else from the committee? So hearing nothing, I just want to explain to people who are listening, and I'm going to give a few of you an opportunity to speak. I see a couple of you have your hands up. What we're doing today is really just we've crafted this bylaw, and we're not voting to enact anything. We're just going to, we may not even vote, if there's no objection with it moving to a joint session of the planning board and select board for presentation. That's all we're doing out of this committee. A lot of you who wrote were concerned that we were voting today on this bylaw, and just want to make it clear that it's not a vote to enact anything. So, because I just have to touch their hands, right? To allow them to speak. So Ethan Sumner.
Should be enough. There you go. Yep.
Ethan, looks like you're muted.
Yep, unmute themselves.
Unmute.
So before you go, Ethan, I'd like to just ask for everybody to keep their comments brief. We're already an hour and a half into this thing. There's still a couple of things that we want to do as a committee.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I just want to say that I think there's a big misconception that the people who are renting out their homes short term are rich and they're wealthy. They're not. They're hardworking. I graduated Monument Mountain in 1996. I worked for the Berkshire Record for 10 years, and I started Berkshire's Best for 15 years. And it's hard to live here, okay? And most people who are trying to prevent these short-term rentals are the ones who already have money, And it's hard to live here, and it's hard. So my mother died in Manor Lane on a Hurlburt Road. We were neighbors with John Beckwith for many years. It was the best upbringing. We came from New York City. We had an opportunity. And now we have a chance to keep her dream house alive by the short-term rental market. And it's the only way we could do it. But the misconception says they're rich. They don't take care of their properties. We support every contractor, painter, plumber. We recommend every restaurant, every mom and pop shop in the town. We are part of GB, and we need to be heard.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Let's see. Justin Henderson. Again, I'd ask you to keep your comments brief, please. Go ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can.
I just want to put forth the argument that I don't really see that this is going to address the salient points that Ms. Davis has stipulated it will. I don't think it's my firm belief that there's really no data to support that forcing this short-term rental regulation on people who own homes, second homes, or investors or otherwise is really going to lend to more starter homes, more affordable rentals. I mean, the reality is I have a second home there, and we rent it out, sure, and for profit, as people do when they buy things and don't live in them. And if we're forced to stop or forced to have very long minimum stays in such a way where our revenues don't meet our annual nuts, we're just going to sell the home, and it's going to be bought up by a affluent New Yorker who comes in there and occupies it for 50 days a year. And the only thing the town's going to get is a loss of revenue in ski season and in summer by houses that are unoccupied. And it's not going to do one iota of good to the short-term rental issue that is the root cause of this proposal. I just think that this is going to do a lot more harm to the service communities, restaurants, any service industry in the town is going to be adversely impacted by this. And aside from one member of the committee, I didn't hear any real concern about that. And if this is really about people, I think that has to be a giant chunk of this conversation. And I, as of this meeting, haven't heard much about that. So I don't think this addresses the problem at hand. And I think it causes adverse impacts for the town. And if it goes to a vote and passes, I think you'll see that come to pass, and it's just going to end up getting repealed.
Thank you, Justin. Leo Stemp, I'll ask you as well to please keep your comments brief.
So I believe I'm unmuted, am I?
You are.
Okay. So the first thing that struck me is that you think that by making the non-residents sell their rentals, these properties are going to be converted to short-term rentals and starter homes. Do you have any data whatsoever to suggest that? Because I think you're completely wrong on that, just dead wrong. It's just amazing. So that's my first point. My second point is, do you have any, I mean, you must know the income that you're getting through the tax that Great Barrington applies to short-term rentals. It's about 6% of the rental fee, something like that. So you must know that exact number. Do you have that information with you?
We do not.
Have you looked at that?
We've tried to look at many data points that we don't have access to at this point. That's why we're looking into a company that's going to help us parse out some of these data points that you bring up.
Okay, so the money that you're getting in taxes from these short-term rentals is one source of income that you're going to lose. Okay, and as Justin Henderson said, the vast majority of those short-term rentals that you lose are not going to be converted into short-term rentals by your primary residential owners as you think they will be. They will not. Okay, and the second thing that you're going to lose is all the tourist money, the restaurant money from people who come to occupy those short-term rentals. That's going to be earth-shaking to Great Barrington, all the money that you're going to lose. If you don't have that data, if you haven't looked at that data before doing this presentation tonight, I mean, that's just being irresponsible to the town. That's shocking. And the last term, the last thing I want to say is that, I found this presentation to be somewhat offensive, if, respectfully speaking, because you're basically telling the people who own houses who do not live in town, but they own houses, they support the town, as one of the other people said, they support the town with all the people they employ at their homes and all the visitors who they send to populate the businesses in town. You're saying them, screw you, we don't want your business. And
Thank you, Mr. Stamp. Mr. Blumenthal, or Ron Bloom, I'm sorry if I was presumptuous with your last name. You have disappeared. So Lucas, you're next up. Please keep your comments brief.
Sure. Thanks for taking this, Peter. And Leah, thank you so much for your proposal. It seems like you put a lot of effort into that. So just want to sort of go over a couple of things quickly. I agree with a lot of Pedro's points. I think based on this data, it's pretty clear that the overall percentage of short-term rentals in Great Barrington is relatively low given the available rental stock. On top of that, I'll just mirror Leo's point that the services, the service providers, as well as restaurants and shops in Great Barrington, rely heavily on tourism. I think that the short-term rental market is, the base of that, and without being able to offer that to travelers, it's going to have a massive impact on the shops and restaurants in Great Barrington. So that's definitely something that I think needs further consideration. And then, my last point is that I own a house personally in Great Barrington, purchased it a few years ago, used it as a second home. I would not be able to afford this home without doing some short-term rentals. And, if this house went back on the market, it would not fall into the starter home price bracket that was, being talked about earlier. So I think that's another thing that needs further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. We got a few more here. Frank, please keep your comments brief. I'm not going to be presumptuous about people's names anymore, John.
Oh, hi.
I assume it's Peter Frank.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Myself. Yes. I think that the presentation was not balanced because it did not in any way consider what the effects are on the businesses in town. I mean, I feel like Great Barrington right now, to my eye, has never been healthier. You go downtown, there are people everywhere. That I applaud the town for like the dining on the streets during the summer. How fantastic is that? And how could that possibly take place without people coming in? I feel like, and the short-term rentals that promotes within town. How many before the pandemic, before all the New Yorkers or people supposedly moved up here, before that, how many storefronts were empty? Many, many, many. The fact is that what is going on now is healthy economic, free market, healthy economics. And I feel like that I'm very sensitive. I totally respect the idea that there's not enough housing available. However, this proposal is completely indirectly responding to that problem. It's not a direct response to the problem. If you need more housing, create more housing. There are many ways that can be done. You could use tax revenue from short-term rental housing to build new housing. There are so many sites along Route 7 that could possibly create housing. But the fact is that most of the rentals, the short-term rentals, are on the Hill. The Hill is traditionally been suburban in nature and very loose density and not conducive to lower income housing. It's a suburban model. What you need is higher density, and that's the only way that you can create more housing. It's an economy of scale, and it's just like, if you're telling me that it's about creating housing, it does nothing. It just takes away people's property rights from houses that they own, with the unfounded notion that this may possibly create housing. You're taking housing away from people and giving it to people who presumably, have more rights to housing because they grew up in Great Barrington. What about people? It feels xenophobic to me. Like, we don't want people coming from the outside, coming here. So what we're going to do is make it difficult for people to come here. And, it just seems economically ill-considered, because all I see is, empty storefronts in downtown Great Barrington. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I'm going to go with Karen Waddell here. I got time for a couple more. Karen, you with us?
Hey there. Well, look, I want to thank Lee. Thank you I know you put a lot of time into this and thought into this. And I just want to present myself as someone who I think is a little bit demonized in this conversation, as a few of the prior speakers were. So let me just give my background on my relationship with Great Barrington. I grew up in New York City and used to go up there a lot. And my fiance actually went to Simon's Rock. So about 8 years ago, I fulfilled a dream of finally owning property there. And I bought a condo, which I just sold about 3 weeks ago because I want to get into a little bit of a larger home. I'm actually stuck in New York a lot of the time because my mother has Alzheimer's and I'm taking care of her and I need my escape valve. So I'm looking at a small home in a town I love, Great Barrington. And my way of making it affordable is to have the idea of a short-term rental when I'm not using it. And I love the town. I would happily sit on a committee that was utilizing the 3% impact fee, which I think is really more of a fiscally responsible way to do this. I'm also a little bit surprised, like a prior speaker, that no one has calculated the tax revenue from these short-term rentals, because it does seem like it is significant and it could be a loss to the town. And I'd be happy to see a 3% additional fee, and I'd be happy to serve on a committee that helps to figure out how to provide that housing. My fiance sat in Los Angeles on a housing committee in his community board. So I just want to say that just because I live full-time in New York, as my residence is in New York, doesn't mean that I'm not a stakeholder in Great Barrington and don't care about Great Barrington.
Thank you, Karen. I'd like to just add that, I think I mentioned earlier that some of the revenue that was generated by short-term rentals helped offset the losses that we had this year from the hotel and B&B rental. So it was a significant amount. I don't know the exact number. I tried to find that exact number before this meeting, but I couldn't do it. So I see a couple people here who have written to us. So I'm going to allow people who have not had a voice to speak first. So I'm going to go with Ron Blue. We're going to try you again.
Ron wrote to us.
You did?
That is.
Well,
hey, am I there?
Yeah.
You're here. Yes, go ahead. I'll give you a shot.
I did write to you, so I won't go over my.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Again, but I would ask that you include them in your record, if you could. And I just want to say
we will.
Oh, thank you. We all want the same thing, which is better housing and revenue. So I am that terrible thing, quote, just an investor, although I've lived here for over 20 years. And I just want to say, as quote, just an investor, unquote, it took me years to scrape together the down payments for the crumbling houses that I bought. And it took me a long time to scrape the money together to renovate them. I would say I'm not an investor. I'm a thrifty saver. I don't Airbnb houses here, which also I mentioned to you, but I don't want to be told how to run my business or how to run my investment. I've spent literally millions of dollars on houses here in construction. I don't think anyone on this board owns rental properties in the town. It's not an easy business. To be stopped from running an Airbnb if I need to do that from time to time. This is not going to strengthen the long-term rental market. You're trying to get, and I'm quoting here, get 50 homes to add to the supply. So essentially, you're forcing 50 people to sell their houses. Those are not going to be starter houses. And I don't think that's how we do things, in the United States. You will sell your house for starter homes. That seems a little bit draconian to me, as does this whole monitoring software. And it's a police state, and it's not the place where I choose to live. I did raise my child here. He was actually even conceived here. There's a plaque. And he did graduate from school here. I don't think that this is the kind of community that we want to put together. There are starter homes here. They're just not on the hill in Barrington. And so that's really all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Bart Walker. Are you with us?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I'm new. This is my first meeting. New in Great Barrington. Much of what I raised my hand to say has already been said. But I do want to say that I found the presentation, to be full of assertions that aren't demonstrated to be correlated to the results that the speaker wanted to achieve. And it's felt very arbitrary to me. And in particular, the idea that someone who's here 6 months and 1 day cares about the community, and someone who's here 5 months and 25 days doesn't, and is a speculator, I find very troubling. There are many different ways of caring about a community and investing in a community and being part of a community. And I don't feel that this proposal is very thoughtful about that.
Thank you, Bart. All right, Claudia and Kristen, you're the last two speakers. I'll go with Claudia first. Claudia, are you with us?
Yes, here I am, and I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so my voice is a little bit off. But I want to say thank you to everybody for your, looking into this very important dilemma that is not only in our town, but in so many towns across America. And I agree with a lot of the things that people have already said, so I'm not going to get into that too much.
Appreciate that.
What's that?
I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I do too. So I have a company that pretty much caters to the luxury market, and I built it from the ground up. I'm a local resident who moved here in 2003 and raised my two kids. And I forget. I don't know if I have 6 or 8 properties in Great Barrington. I have about 30 altogether in the Southern Berkshires. And I know that and all of them are second homeowners or not primary residents that use it a great deal of the time during the year and then want to rent it so that it's occupied and it's kept up and it's not sitting empty. And none of those would be available in the housing market, maybe in the very high end housing market, but certainly not long-term rentals would be available. So I just like you to factor that in. And then also just in terms of the monitoring system, I feel like it's based on a lot of assumptions. I have, when I go in, and all of my properties are rented also through Airbnb and through my site, I block out housekeeping dates on either side of every rental, so we have adequate time to turn the property over and clean it. There's owner blocks, there's maintenance blocks. So your software would assume that those are all short-term rentals when in fact they would not be. So I'd like to know more about the monitoring system, which does feel like pretty draconian. Like, are there drones coming to look and see how many people are in the houses? Or so the last point I want to make is that I would imagine that there has to be very significant amount of money that the 6% being included in short-term rentals since 2018. So I'd really like to see how this money is being used, who's overseeing it, and to what good we could use it for. And I am all for the 3% impact fee if there's an impact. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Claudia. All right, Kristen, if you can keep it brief, you'll be our last speaker tonight. Thank you. You with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I also agree with a lot of the previous points, so I won't go into any of that thing that has already been said. The one thing that I will comment on is the point that you made about neighbors and how neighbors are important, and how if you're renting your own home, then your neighbors will know that you're caring for your house. Well, I don't want to rent out my own home because I don't want to have to leave my home in order to do rentals, in order to survive and be able to live here. I have also been able to scrape together some savings and manage to buy a second home that I can use for family when they want to come and visit me. And I'm also using it for short-term rentals, and that is what is allowing me to make ends meet and be able to live in this place that I love. And I am a full-time resident. I'm committed to the area. I am friends with my neighbors, the neighbors of the house that I rent. And I just feel like this proposal is taking away my ability, would take away my ability to survive here. And this using spyware to monitor people's rentals and what they're doing in their homes just seems like not the answer.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks, everybody, for your thought.
Can I just answer 3 things that were pointed? I'm going to make it very, very succinct, please. Just
if you can keep it brief,
yeah,
go ahead.
Literally just, first of all, this is not a ban on short-term rentals. So some of the speakers appear to have made it seem like that we're trying to ban short-term rentals outright. This is not the case. They will still be available in Great Barrington. So that's the first point I want to make, that we're not banning short-term rentals in this proposal. Number 2, someone mentioned empty storefronts that are currently visible on Main Street. And most of those places are empty because they can't find staffing. Staff cannot afford to live in Great Barrington right now. There's 0% vacancy rate. Rents of the rentals that are available are sky high, and the prices for homes have gone sky high. So if you think about the visitors that come to Great Barrington, they go to their local restaurant that they love and it's closed. They go to the coffee shop and they have to wait a half hour for a cup of coffee. So this is the reality of what's happening in Great Barrington. And the third point and the last point I want to make is that it's great that people have the opportunity to have second homes here and investment properties. And I absolutely value that. And I thank you for investing in Great Barrington and upkeeping your properties. But the people that need homes here don't have options. They can't rely on a second property to rent out just to have that ability. They are forced, because they have no opportunity to live here, to move. And we're talking about senior citizens that have been priced out of their homes because they can no longer afford to live here. They can't downsize. Their kids can't afford to live here. You have young people that would love to stay here and work in the coffee shops and work in the restaurants, but they cannot afford to live here, and then there's no rentals available. So I just ask people to think about the bigger picture, and that we're trying to find a balance between community and second homeowners and seasonal homeowners. So I'm not trying to vilify and have people turn against each other. I'm just trying to find a balance. And I ask you just to open your hearts and just think about the community as a whole a little bit. I'm very, very sorry if I made it appear that I was trying to vilify second homeowners or investors, but I'm just trying to open up the supply a little bit to the people of Great Barrington that really want to stay here and that want to live here. So thank you.
Thanks, Lee. So there are no objections from anybody on the committee. I'd like to refer this bylaw to a joint session of Select Board and Planning Board. So hearing none, then it shall be done. And we can move on from short-term rentals, at least in this committee. We can all just gather again in a couple of weeks and talk about it some more. Okay, so in the interest of time, we've been here a couple hours. I appreciate you guys sticking it out. On the planning board, we have this running thing where we're always going to talk about zoning, but we always run out of time. So it's kind of the same thing here, except it's with the housing study and the assignments that I've given you. And Garfield, you haven't accepted an assignment. So if you'd be willing to accept one, I'm happy to give you one. But I'll just briefly say that the reason why I wanted to do a quick kind of look at the housing study is because I think I've got an interest in this committee developing a housing production plan. I sent you guys an example of like some bullet points that help shape the one in Lenox, which I think is a really good one. I hope you guys pay attention to that one point that talks about density, because I think we need to have that discussion here, and this committee is the right place to do it. So hopefully we're not going to have anything else on our agenda next time, and we can really start to dig into these things. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I also sent you guys this letter that was sent to me by a colleague from the NAACP who is seeking some support for a transfer tax bill that would be used, transfer tax monies that would be used for affordable housing. There are 2 bills going before the houses in Boston, and he's looking for some support. And I was wondering if this committee would be interested in putting its name on it, if it's possible. Did you guys have a chance to review the letter?
Yep.
I read the letter, but I have no idea what the two bills are.
Okay, well, they're basically that. They're bills that are similar to, in my understanding, similar to the senior tax deferral program. They're bills that will allow municipalities to use transfer tax fees for certain other things, allocate those monies in certain ways. Chris, maybe if you know something more about it, you can tell us.
No, I'm not familiar with that legislation.
All right.
It could also end up penalizing a lot of homeowners. You know, that are downsizing because they've run out of money. They can't support the house they have. And then they're going to end up paying money to the state.
I'm familiar. I have to pull it up because I have been doing some research and I'm just trying to, I didn't realize that we were going to go kind of do a deep dive about this.
Well, it's just kind of, it's kind of imminent for us to either lend our support or so we can send our own letter in support. There are many people. I received this really through a connection on the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission's housing task force that I serve on. Mm-hmm. And there are several people, Glenn Miller and Lennox is one of them. I think Pittsfield, and I also think that Williamstown is going to send their own support.
Is this the transfer fee for affordable housing? I just want to make sure. Is it the S868? Yeah, so I could speak a little bit, give a brief thing.
Great, that'd be great.
There's a bill in the Senate and in the House. The Senate is S868. It's sponsored by Senator Joanne Comerford. So a lot of us, or some of us, are familiar with Senator Comerford. Then there's House Bill H1337, and some of the keys to the bill is it's framed as a transfer fee for affordable housing, and it gives municipalities a critical funding tool for the creation and preservation of affordable housing. It authorizes a transfer fee of 0.5% and 2% on real estate transactions above the statewide median sale price for single-family homes, which is currently $529,000, or the county median sale price if a locality's median is lower than the statewide median. All funds raised by the municipality's transfer fee would go towards affordable housing preservation and/or the creation. Number two, it would allow for broad and locally determined exemptions. So it mandates certain exemptions, including on properties below 100% of the state or county median sale price, and allows cities and towns to tailor additional exemptions to meet their specific community needs. One of the other points is that it discourages speculative sales. Municipalities are also authorized to charge a fee up to 6% for speculative sales, which are properties sold within 1 year at a price 3 times the state median sale price. Requires local decision-making prior to adoption, and it's widely used tool to generate revenue. So what they say on their one sheet is, it says a local option real estate transfer fee would be an effective, efficient, and equitable tool for raising necessary revenue for affordable housing in communities across the Commonwealth. So there's 2 different pieces of legislation right now.
I mean, I think, that's as an alternative to CPA money, which is the only really funding option we have right now for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think, this is the kind of stuff that I'd like for our committee to really get at, right? There are many fiscal tools out there that we need to mine and to get involved with to be able to fund the creation of housing, to have a real sort of positive impact on that. This is one way. Showing our support, I think, would go a long way.
Yeah, I think this is incredibly powerful. And what I like about it is that empowers a town to impose a fee. on certain real estate transactions. So to support affordable housing. So it's another tool. It doesn't say we have to, but it gives us the empowerment as a community to divert money towards that. So I think this is actually something I would personally like to support. And I was going to add my name to it either way, but it would be great if we could do it as a committee or subcommittee.
I'm with that.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the Select Board, Planning Board, Housing Subcommittee add our name and endorse and add our name to this legislation, S868 and H1377. That's it.
I'll second
it. Can we just say that we would add our names to this letter in support?
In support. Oh, did I not say that? Yes. So I make a motion that we would add our names in support in a letter.
In a separate letter or to join the NAACP's letter?
I think we should get some clarification if it would be stronger as a separate letter, or if we would, because I know that NAACP is requesting that we could just add our name to their level. So we can verify offline to see which they would prefer.
All right. Any other discussion here? All right, we'll do quick roll call vote. Jonathan?
I can't vote for it because I don't know enough about it.
So you'll abstain, Lee?
Aye.
No, I'm going to vote against it at this point because I don't know enough about it.
Okay. Aye.
All right. Garfield?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye for it. If we do, I guess if we include our committee in there, I'll make sure to, I guess, I don't know, we'll figure it out, but I'll make sure not to include Jonathan since he doesn't want his name associated with it.
Yeah.
That sound all right, John?
I'll send around this fact sheet right now.
Yeah, great.
That's okay to everyone.
I was going to circulate this also just to the select board and to the planning board separately, just to see if we can get some traction. And so if you send me those fact sheets, I can include it with the letter.
Okay, I'll send it right now.
All right. All right, so we've got time for some citizen speak. I'll ask that if you've spoken before that you please not speak again. I hate to say don't speak, but I've got one person, and Bard, you've spoken since you're the only guy,
on
only
a
person.
New topics, Pedro.
Yes, this is it. Sorry, this is you're right. So let me back up again a little bit. Citizen speak time on topics that we have not already addressed. And again, if you've spoken on topic already, I ask that you please refrain. I see nobody's hands up anyway. So, unless there's something else from the committee, I will adjourn without objection.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks a lot.
Nice.
See you.